So, yes, today we're going to be talking about why more engagement is not better because it's not. And we can get stuck in an endless loop of thinking, like, oh, if I just create more, then it's going to be successful. And so, a lot of our clients who work with us, that's a pleasant surprise for them because they realize they learn very quickly that more is not better. And in fact, getting really focused and appreciating and being grateful for what they already have without having to create more crap that's the secret to success. I was just at a gathering of community professionals last week, and it's really interesting because these were like enterprise, publicly traded companies, and folks who build communities for these companies. And for them, it's more about like more is better for that audience. So I want to be really clear here that I'm talking today and often in much of my work, not about these enterprise, publicly traded company community builders. You have an important job to do, and you're doing it in an environment that is not friendly to belonging and that is not friendly to relationality. So I just want to name that because I see it among a lot of my clients, and your stresses are very different than what I'm going to be talking about today. And if you were to come in and share what I'm going to be talking about today with your teams, I know because I've talked to many of the leaders in these organizations, you get a lot of pushback. But for those of you who are creators, small business owners, people who are passionate about the communities that they build, everything I'm sharing today, you're not going to get pushback on and is going to create more joy and abundance and intention in your business. So that's who I'm really talking to today. So if you're here from a large publicly traded organization, take everything that I'm sharing with a grain of salt and know that you're going to have to advocate for all of this internally. It's still very true for you. It's going to be very different. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I am Carrie Melissa Jones. I am a community strategist, creator, author, social scientist, and I help organizations of all shapes and sizes, from these open, publicly traded companies to small businesses, creators, solopreneurs, build the communities of their dreams, whatever that might mean for them. So we work across different organizations, industries, verticals, to create spaces where people can all contribute and co-create together. So today we're going to be talking about how to measure success and why more is not better. We're going to talk about it at a really high level. I'm going to talk about the three kind of metrics, the three areas that you can be tracking to see if you're successful. If you want to dive even deeper into this, there is a link in the description of this live today. If you're on YouTube, and if you're not, jump over to my YouTube channel and you can find a link to our brand new workshop that's all about how to create a thriving community. It's going to give you the 6-part framework, walk you through all the pieces to consider, and that's going to help you to really invest strategically in your community as you move forward. So that's the big overview today, and that's what we're going to be jumping into in today's topic. So let's get into, I'm going to actually share some slides here today, just like I did last week. Let's open those up. All right, so you're going to see my notes here for just a second. So everything I'm about to share with you today comes from this structure right here called the community commitment curve. Now you're looking at this and you're like, what the heck does this have to do with metrics? What this has to do with metrics is that what we're really trying to do, the structure that we're trying to create in our community is moving people from joining and discovering our community. So discovering, then joining, into engaging, and ultimately into leading in our communities. So if we are not doing that with our work, then we're not creating something that is scalable over the long term. And so that's really dangerous. That's a real risk in our work. So what we really need to be doing is moving people along this journey. Does that mean 100% of people that join our community are going to take on leadership positions and be co-leaders alongside us? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we need a small portion of them, and we're going to talk about that exact portion, to be in this role as we move forward in order for our communities to sustain themselves. So what this is essentially walking us through is how to move them along and which feelings we want to be maximizing and which ones we want to be designing around and helping our members work through as they join our communities. So when you're discovering a community, you're usually very curious about it. You might be excited and hopeful, but you might also be feeling skeptical about it, afraid, or confused. So as community builders, we need to design to answer to that skepticism, to mitigate the confusion, to make things really clear. And then as you join, the feelings change. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can see what you're really trying to do is amplify these positive feelings, these feelings of belonging, essentially, and then mitigate the feelings where people feel like they don't belong. They're not part of the group. So that's what this is all based on, is this sense, or this structure, that we need to move people into leadership positions. That's the only way to create something that is really scalable. So what this then breaks down to, and I'm going to walk through each one of these metrics, is how do we know we're doing a good job? Well, it's going to break down into these 3 areas. We need to look at metrics around participation. That's first. Retention. That's second. And then finally, sustainability. Again, these are key metrics and benchmarks that track progress toward building a healthy, sustaining community culture. So we're working toward that co-leadership, and these are going to be your guiding lights on that entire journey. Okay. So I mentioned I would talk about proportions. So that's what I'm going to jump into here next, is that there's a key proportion that you want to keep in mind. And that is what we often refer to as the 80-20 principle. But I'll explain this in more depth right here. So realistically, in your community, you can expect a small core group to participate the most. It's not that 100% of your members are going to participate. That will never, ever, ever be the case in your community. So just set that expectation now. Just go into this knowing like we are not going to see 100% of our members showing up, logging in, we're commenting on posts. What we're actually aiming for is to get 20% of those members to be active contributors. And then 80% are going to be more passive. They might be lurking, they might be watching, and they're still important, but it's more important to nurture that 20%. And that's what we're really, really focusing on. So I'm going to go into the 3 different metrics to be focusing on based on this principle, this 80-20 principle. Before I do, I just want to share that this is actually based on not only my own research and working with communities, small communities, all the way up to communities of millions, that these ratios hold strong in these communities, that you see about 20% of people participating, and then about 20% of the 20%, or 4% of members, are critical. Like if they were to leave the community, it would turn into a ghost town. You see that again in the millions, as well as in smaller communities of 10 people. So that's what all of this is based on. And that's a principle called the Pareto principle. So I'm going to stop sharing this. So I'm going to just be talking through the next portion here. So let's see. All right, so let's talk about the 3 different metrics that are important for us to be tracking. So the first one is participation. And this is where I want you to think about the 80-20 principle, because I grab some coffee. I'm getting a tickle in my throat. All right. Because what we're looking for is to see about 20% of our members actively participating. That is what success looks like. 20%, not 100, 20. This is a liberatory thought for a lot of community builders who've been putting pressure on themselves to create like something that everybody loves and everyone participates in. But if you're seeing that number be about 20% and then hopefully rising over time, and setting your own benchmark for what success looks like, then you are cooking with fire, because that's going to be the foundation of engagement that you need to continue to grow and expand your community and the culture of your community. So if you have 10 members in your community and just two of them are actively showing up, they're building a relationship with you, like that is successful. That is successful. And that's enough to keep building on from there. And again, that's that 20% rule. So I was just looking at our numbers in the CMJ community and seeing like, what are our participation numbers? And typically when we work with a client, because we're really strategic and intentional about everything that we do, we're seeing numbers closer to about 40% participation. But that doesn't mean that that is the benchmark that everyone should be aspiring to. Like this is literally what I do with my entire life and career. So if you're not working with a consultant or someone who has been doing this for years, then 20% is major success. And then of that 20%, so then 4% of your members, you should be actively building stronger relationships with. They should be contributing. They should be asking questions in the community. You should be, if they're not actively doing this, then your job is to reach out to them and encourage them to do so and to build those relationships and get to know them even better. So that's what successful participation metrics look like. So that's the first area. The second area then is, let's see if there's any questions here. Yes, Jamar said 20% feels so much better. Yes. And it's what's realistic. That is just, if you look at the data, that's what we see across the board. So communities never have 100% participation. So the second metric area that I want to talk about is retention. So this is something different. This word retention is something different for a paid community versus a free community, because in a paid community, retention is going to mean what is the portion of our membership that is continuing to pay us either month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And that is a vital, like business vital metric, because if you're watching retention slide downwards over time, then you don't have a sustainable business. So retention in a community, we're going to lean on that 80-20 principle again. We really want to be looking at least 80%. If you have a monthly subscription, 80% month over month retention. You don't want to see anything much lower than that. Otherwise, you have what's essentially known as a leaky bucket, where people are joining and then leaving. So you're really going to want to aim for about 80% of members sticking around month after month after month, or if you have a quarterly membership, quarter after quarter after quarter, whatever the decision point is for you. And again, that's just about creating a sustainable foundation financially for your business. This is very different if we're talking about you have a free community and people aren't having to pay and make a decision every month about whether they should stay. You're going to see retention much higher. In fact, in a lot of communities that are free, you won't see anybody really leaving your community over that time period. You might see 100% retention in that sense, but it might be that a portion of them are not logging in, or a portion of them are not actively contributing. So in that case, what you're really looking for in a free community is to see, again, that 20% of people actively logging in, checking in, responding, and being part of the activity of your community, because you're not going to see retention you're not going to see it at a really low rate and sliding backward. And I have other videos about how to increase retention and how important it is to be monitoring it on my YouTube channel. I recommend checking those out. But that's what we really want to be looking for, is in a paid community, about 80%. And then in a free community, you should be looking at about 100%. Hopefully people aren't like leaving your free community. That's like something to be really, really closely paying attention to. So that's what's important to look at for retention. I'm curious, for those of you who have memberships right now, are these metrics that you're already looking at? Is retention something that you have like a dashboard for? I will share that on our side of things. I use Circle. That's the community platform of choice for my community. And we have a really special scenario in which we have a public free portion of our community, and then we have a paid portion of the community. So what this means is that Circle's dashboards are effectively useless for us, because it's not going to tell us things like the overall participation rate of our paid members, and then the overall retention rate of just our paid members. The dashboards are giving us things like total participation of all members. And, we have like 400 members in the overall public community, but only a portion of those are in the paid community. So currently, this will not be the case moving forward. I'm working with an incredible consultant who will hopefully fix all of this. And as soon as I can confirm that it is all fixed, I will let you know her name and refer her like far and wide. But we're just now starting that process where we don't have to manually track it anymore. But right now what I'm doing is I am literally manually looking at subscriptions every month, and I am making sure that we're watching those retention metrics and our retention month over month, because we do have a monthly option for membership, hover somewhere between 85 to 95% retention. So again, that's where you really want to be aiming as well. But you'll notice when you start playing around with numbers, if you have a spreadsheet for this, like moving from, if you have 95% retention one month and then you have like 70 another, you're going to lose so many people, and it has this compounding effect on your revenue. So it's really important to be projecting this and then continually encouraging folks to stick around. And that can take some time to really figure out. We have a whole like Slack automation that tells us when people leave. And I try really hard not to get discouraged by it, but I use that as I go immediately when I see someone leaves the community, I send them an email and I say like, hey, let's talk, like why you left and what I can learn from it. We're still in these early stages now where I'm not like freaking out that people are leaving. It's a stage in which I'm saying, okay, what can I learn from people leaving? And I am learning a ton about why people are leaving. So Jamar mentioned the retention metric tricks me up because I keep wanting to look at it as members join versus canceled, but I also want to track the average member stays and these numbers based on their payment tier. Yeah. And especially like, because I know you use Circle as well, Jamar, like these things are not easy to track in Circle. And I personally don't. I also have a free trial turned on in Circle. That makes it even more complicated because I can't then look at, I can look at trial conversions, but I can't look at like only people that converted from a trial. And then I can't look at like who stuck around. So again, I'm doing this all very, very manually. And hopefully I can tell you, Jamar, very soon, like how to not do it manually, with Circle specifically. Yeah, looking at like average member stays or like average, this is often known as like customer lifetime value. This is something that when I used to use a cart software called Samcart, and it would track customer lifetime value, and I love that about it. But I'm not using it anymore because I'm trying to consolidate our tech stack. Yeah, this will be a great thing for you to bring up in the next CMJ community call. Would love to dive into this further with you. And you're building something in Airtable. Yeah. I know a lot of people working on custom stuff there. Let's see, Cassandra, we have a free community. However, we monthly track activity and inactives after 6 months. We then will campaign to those users to re-engage. Yeah, exactly. So you'll usually look at like inactivity. It's not so much churn as it is inactivity after 6 months. And you'll see a lot of community builders focus on like re-engagement campaigns. I think if that's something that you have capacity for on your team to run re-engagement campaigns, fantastic. Just know that it is much, much harder to re-engage someone and to get them to come back than it is to engage those who are already active in your membership. But it's even harder to get somebody back who has left entirely. So it's like in terms of your priority and what you should be focusing on, it's like focus on the happy people and continuing to serve them and make sure that you have programs for them. Focus on the re-engagement people who are kind of, they're inactive, and then focus on win back and things like that and getting net new members in. So that's what's important to be tracking for retention. Then the third metric that I want to talk about is, and this is something that if you've watched my other YouTube videos, you'll know I talk about this all the time. It's this idea of sustainability and giving yourself plenty of time and space for this to be successful. So when I'm talking about sustainability, the metric that I'm typically looking at is the ratio between how much you and your staff, if you have a team, are creating content or how active you are having to be versus how active your members are in your community. And so you can, in Circle, again, I'm going to talk about this because this is the platform we use. You can learn this you can actually pull engagement just of admins, and you can pull engagement just of members, and you can compare the two. You can also look at just your top members, who's contributing, who's participating, and you can look at their scores, like their engagement scores, and see how it's comparing with your score if you are the leader of the community, and see if you are contributing like an outsized amount compared to everybody else. You should be almost all the time doing that, but over time you should see the ratio get closer and closer, and eventually after about 18 months, the ratio should flip from you doing most of the engagement to your members doing more of it than you will be doing. And that's how you build a scalable, sustainable community. And that's what we don't end up getting to a lot of times because people pull the plug on their community before it can get to that point. But that's what we really want to be looking at in terms of sustainability, is just how much are you having to do and push and hustle for, and then how much are your members stepping up, helping each other, answering each other's questions, and truly being in community together, not just, being a place for them to reach out to you for customer support, right? So those are the 3 metrics that I recommend looking at. These participation metrics and knowing what that benchmark is, the 80-20 benchmark, retention, looking at about 80% retention, and then sustainability. So looking at the ratio between your contributions and the contributions of your members and making sure that they are becoming more equal, and then the number of contributions are growing more than your contributions over time. So this is all like very high level information. I hope that it's been really helpful for you in thinking about what you're going to be tracking. If you want to dive even deeper into this and really put this all into a model to create a thriving community overall and learn like how you can impact retention, how you can grow and move things forward, then that's why I highly recommend checking out our brand new workshop on how to create a thriving community. Again, it is linked on the description of this YouTube live, and throughout my YouTube channel. You can find it on the main page there. And we go all the way into the 6-part framework and just really everything that we have learned over many years of research and practice, and help you apply all of that into your own community work. So if you have any questions about that or how to get access to it, it is totally free. So highly recommend checking that out if you have not already. But that's it. That's all I got for today. I'm keeping it short and sweet. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you on the internet. See you on Instagram. If you're watching the replay of this, let me know what you're learning. Let me know what questions you have. Tag me on Instagram, and let's keep talking about community building. All right. Thanks, friends. Have a wonderful rest of your day.